Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Here we are. And we'll get this recorder going. Good to see everybody. I noticed sitting here looking east through the windows, it's starting to get light a little bit sooner. We're on the uphill climb now. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to launch out onto this second new section this morning. We're still, of course, looking at the life of Jacob, but I introduced this new section last week, and I've chosen to call this snapshots. We're going to just look at snapshots. You know, prior in our study before, we looked at pretty much verse by verse, and through the narrative of Jacob's life. But now, what we're going to do to finish out his life is we're going to look at just snapshots and then analyze those snapshots in his life. So we're going to look at the first snapshot this morning from Genesis 37, 1 through 4. And if somebody could get ready to read that text, 37, 1 through 4, we'll do that. Now, again, I realize you can't read it, and that's not the point. This, the section we're looking at today is basically chapter 37, and instead of reading the entire chapter, which has more of the story in it, we're just going to focus in on the first 4 verses. But that's snapshot 1 right there highlighted, and then we'll keep moving through until we finish the life of Jacob. But before we read this, and again, I'm putting this text in context to what we've been learning about Jacob. And Jacob has had a journey, like every man's journey, and I believe it's a transformational journey. But that's problematic because how we think about the term transformation. And as we read these texts, this is just a primer of how we should, just a caution. And the caution is this, is that we are so conditioned in the way we think. It's all around us to think white hat, black hat. So the guys that are the bad guys wear the black hats, and they do bad things. The guys who are in the white hats always do the right thing. That is so much ingrained in how we think. And so when we go to the Bible and we read about these people, the patriarchs in this case, Jacob is a patriarch, and we read about his behavior, he should be wearing a white hat because he's deep into his transformative process as a man, and we see him acting otherwise, it really puts us on tilt. Well, that is the beauty of the scriptures, because of the very fact of this transformative process in Christ is not perfection. And so we're left to deal with, then how do you reconcile this? And that's the fun of this. And so that's just not a caution, but just a preface of as we start reading these texts, how we're conditioned, white hat, black hat. It happens to be very much where our culture is. We talked about these stages of growth. This is stage 3. This is where everything is black and white. And our expectations are built on that. So would somebody read the text, verses 1 through 4 of chapter 37?
Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding with his flock with his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him.
Okay, so this is our first snapshot of Jacob's family. Now remember, we talked last time about, in our first section, we talked about Jacob being the center of the story. There were occasions that he responded to, and we studied that. Now, there's a lot more happening around Jacob's life that he's not in control of. And so I've got this picture that I've developed, and you've seen this many times before. And of course, the question is, where is Jacob in his process here? This is like a review. We've talked about his first half of life, his ascension as a man. He leaves, he goes out on the great journey, he comes to Haran, he takes a wife, he builds his empire, in Haran. He then starts to get pushback from his father-in-law, and he experiences some things. But that first half of life, and I put that line right there, and this is my opinion, where he starts to move into the second half of life, is where he leaves Haran. He is overcome by his father-in-law, who comes out and says, "Why did you leave the way you left? I couldn't say, you didn't give me the opportunity to say goodbye properly." And Jacob admits, "I was afraid." That's, in my opinion, the key to a man's starting to change, where he's able to embrace the negative, really to face reality. And that takes numerous different forms, but that's the first step. Then he goes into this process where he really starts to face his own being, who he is, his own past, his painful past. And that culminates right here with the wrestling of the angel. And where he's able to understand for the first time his limitations. Of course, it's pictured where the angel, it's a beautiful, beautiful picture. The angel wounds him, and he walks with a limp for the rest of his life, which is really, and it depicts limitation. And so that process begins here and ends here. And so I want to believe, I use that term, I want to believe that he's on this wisdom journey of descent, which descent does not mean biological getting old and decrepit. It means the process of letting go. And I think that is the way of wisdom. The second half of life is much more about letting go than ascension. I mean, it's not about ascension. It's about letting go and release. And that's what's depicted here. So, where is Jacob? I would plot him somewhere right in here. He understands his limitations. He's faced the reality of his past. And so he's somewhere on this journey. But this journey is not perfection. He's not a saint. He's a patriarch. He's a man. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is because we can relate to it. Now, the structure in this section, we finished chapter 35. Chapter 35 shows Jacob and his brother Esau working together. Jacob is back in the land of promise. He's in the place that God has called him to be, and he's working in harmony with his brother. And that depicts in my mind the fact that the past has been healed, and there is in reconciliation. It's a beautiful picture where it says he and his brother buried their father. That's the end of chapter 35. 36 picks up now. The writer then says, "And these are the generations," or the family of Esau. which is, it strikes us a little odd. Well, why would that bring that in? Well, it follows in a flow of what's happened in 35, last verse. But bear with me for a moment. 30, and so this is the generations of Esau, chapter 36. And then 37:1 I view as a bridge, where it says, and Jacob dwelt in the land. It's introducing a new idea. And then in 37:2, the same phrase that we see in 36:1. Now these are the generations of Jacob. So first were the generations of Esau, and then the generations of Jacob. And the point being, in my mind, is that, we're just kind of filling in the gaps here. We're going to focus in over here. But, a couple things here. All of Jacob's family, the entire family, is important. Again, we want to throw out the white hat, black hat. Well, why would they put Esau's family in there? Because it's important to God. That's why. The writer of Genesis, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, put in the generations of Esau because I believe God wanted them in there because they're important to God. And of course, if you ever go to Israel and have opportunity to been to Petra, anybody been to Petra? Again, the whole Edomite people, amazing technological people. They knew how to live and thrive in a desert, harsh region. They had all kinds of innovative things that lended themselves to their level of technology. But they were amazing people as far as how to live in the, develop means to live in the desert. The second thing, we just don't see happily ever after in this story. Again, wearing the white hat, because of the way we think, white hat, black hat, this thing ought to wrap up, and like the last 10 to 15 minutes of a movie, the conflict is resolved, and there's the kiss at the end, and it's happily ever after. That is not the case here. We're not going to see that. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because in probably every life here, that is not the case. It's not. We all have conflict, both inner, hopefully less as we grow. We have external things that are just not perfect, and how to live, how to keep moving and finishing well is what is inspiring to us. And it doesn't have the phrase happily ever after, here, at least here. So anyway, that's the structure. And then snapshot one, there's three aspects. I'm going to describe the components of the snapshot, and then I'm going to bring it all together and describe the snapshot as I see it. The actual photograph, I'm going to describe it, but these are the components that we see. Basically, they're observations. In this snapshot, from 37:1 through 4, snapshot 1, the first thing we notice is, from the text that Dave read, there is a switching of the names. And of course, why is that? Why the switching of the names? Notice, verse 1, the word Jacob is used. Verse 2, the name Jacob is used. And then verse 3, Israel. Remember, Jacob has two names. And of course, and then in the rest of the text, or in Genesis, Jacob is used, I just thought this might be interesting. Jacob is used 31 times. Israel is used 20 times. The word Jacob is used more than Israel. And I've got a little words there. This is my opinion of this, is that I use these words, condition and position. I've read a lot on this and why it's like that. But basically, my take is that when the word Jacob is used, the writer is depicting the current state or the condition of this man, where he's living at that very moment under the given situation that he's in, his condition. We have a condition at every moment of our day, where we are, our state. Whereas, in contrast, the word position has to do with how God sees Jacob before him, his true state from God's perspective. And we all have a true position. As we read the texts of the New Testament, for you are dead, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. The idea that you are beloved, you are the beloved. If Ephesians, I'm trying to think of text, but if you have been raised with Christ, therefore walk, in Him. Christ is in you, and you are in Christ. This language that has mystery, but it's relaying to us through the apostle of our true position, how God sees us, our true identity. And so my take is that when, loosely, there's probably some exceptions, when the word Jacob is used, it's talking about his current state, that which we can really relate to, our current state at any given time. But when the word Israel is used, it's used as how God sees him, the covenantal aspect of his relationship with God, and how God depicts him, or his true place, his true identity in God and in God himself. So in contrast to that, which is interesting, I took the name Abram to Abraham. Remember, he had a name switch as well. And Abram, his pre-covenant name is used consistently all the way to 17:5, where God changes his name. And then from there in afterwards, all the way through the Bible, and I didn't actually look at all the texts in the New Testament, but I would venture to say that from there on, after his name is changed, it's Abraham all the way through. It's Abraham. From Abram to Abraham, clean demarcation in 17:5. So why the contrast? Any thoughts on that? This is kind of heady stuff.
Don't know, but it's interesting that whenever God defines himself at points in the Old Testament, he says, his name is, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah, well, they're all grouped together because they're all part of the same promise.
But the word he uses Jacob, not Israel.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm the God of Jacob. That twisted jerk. I'm his God.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you my take on it. I think it would precedent. Abraham, well, they're all key figures. Something dramatically changed with Abraham, and it's the promise. I believe the promise that God gave to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 is a defining and an interpretive key for how to understand what God is trying to do with us. And in that verse is God promises, as we've talked about this many times, to do something to Abraham in order to do something through him. In you, Abraham, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. And we are part of that blessing in reception, and we are part of that blessing in also giving away. Christ in you, working through you. And so in Abraham's story, the emphasis is on the covenant, and I believe, I'm stating my opinion here, it's a unconditional promise that God. This is the heart of God. This is what God has authored and is executing. It's still alive today, so the emphasis is here. Thus, the name change is intact. Abram to Abraham, because the emphasis of what God has done and is doing and continues to do. Okay, that's my take. Here, the emphasis is on a man named Jacob, who is the recipient of this covenant. And he stands as an example to us how we interact. This would be called, maybe we could use the term orthodoxy. This is orthodox. I mean, in my mind, this idea of promise is orthodox, and I think that I think people would line up with that. This, in contrast, is orthopraxy, how we live it out every day, which is not perfect. So for us to understand about ourselves and about our journey and our path, we read here. If we can read it without white hat, black hat. So that's a long explanation, but we're kind of just building the second thing. Okay, the second thing here is number 2, the second aspect, is that there is in the text that Dave read this evil, or we could substitute the word, a bad report. Okay, Jacob is home. He's old. And his favorite son comes in and says, "Dad, you never would believe what they're doing." Okay. While he's wearing this coat of many colors. Do you see it? Now, herein, because of white hat, black hat, the commentators tend to protect both Jacob and Joseph because they've read the rest of the story. They know, we all know the kind of man that Joseph turns into. It's an amazing, beautiful, redemptive story of forgiveness. But in my take, Joseph is 17 years old. And he knows what Dad likes. You know, there is do I have the love-hate history here. He's got a history. He's only playing out what he's been taught and what has been observed in his family, like our families. Isaac loved Esau more than Jacob. Jacob has lived with that his entire life. And of course, he acted on that earlier on. That's been reconciled. Still part of his life. Rebekah loved Jacob more than Esau. He was mom's favorite. Jacob loved, here Jacob, this is how he carried it into his marriage. Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah. It actually says Leah is hated 2 times in Scripture, 29, 31, and 33. So there's no doubt that hate rules in this family. You know, we are hated, and so we hate. It's no question why when Dave read the text that, and his brothers hated him, because mom was hated. You know, again, from white hat thinking, we think once you receive and pray a prayer to receive Christ, all of this should go away. Well, life just doesn't happen like that. I mean, we carry stuff into life, and there are, only by the grace of God can we make it through those things, but there are ramifications. And I think we're seeing the ramifications you're stirring. Do you have something to say?
I'm just directing you.
Okay, so there's this evil report. My take on it is it's a typical 17-year-old lad that knows how to play into Dad. They got this special thing going. Joseph gets the coat. Jacob gets the strokes. And they've got this thing going. That's how I see it. Now, not everyone sees it that way. And again, there's a big emphasis on protecting these people. But this is my opinion. Snapshot 3 is the coat. The coat of many colors. I've already mentioned that. And I think that the coat of many colors is a natural outcome of the love-hate construct that actually has governed a huge part of this family. I mean, guys, it's so simple to me. A man marries 4 women, and they have 4 sets of children. That is a formula for disaster. And I think we're only seeing the natural outcome. Obviously there would be jealousies and hatred in the family. And the coat of many colors is, yes, Jacob is in deep within transformation, but he has a favorite son from his favorite wife.
There was an interesting ad in television, I think it's for Publishers Clearinghouse, and they changed the nature of the big time prize. And not only do you win a prize, but you can assign another person to pick up that weekly income for the rest of their life.
On a lotto?
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the point is, and Ellen pointed it out to me, she goes, can you imagine a better way to break up a family than to give somebody that they have to assign someone, not a group, someone that knows amount of money. And I can't think of a better way to fracture a family.
That's coat of many colors on double steroids.
Steroids,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's, wow. Yeah, yeah. You talk about, remember the old Smothers Brothers, Mom Loved You Best? Mom, they really played that one up. That was really good. Well, okay, so here's my snapshot. Okay, so picture in your mind an 8x10 landscape portrait. It's black and white. It's a black and white picture, photograph. And in the photograph, the only stroke of color is the coat of many colors. And guess who's wearing it? Joseph. And the scene as we see it is the 17-year-old lad coming in and standing in front of his father. His father is seated, and he's down, kind of crouched a little bit in intensity. Dad, you would never believe. I mean, he's almost like this with his coat of many colors. His dad is looking up into his son's face, almost level, but up a little bit. And you can see him drinking in what his father is, what Joseph is saying. And he's double exposed. You can still make out, it's masterfully done. There's actually two images that are just closely closely laid on top of each other, because Jacob has two names. One is Israel, and one is Joseph, and one is Jacob. And he is in life. I think he's still the presence of those two people are still there. I don't buy the fact of absolute perfection. At least we don't see it in Jacob's life. He's got these two aspects that he's working with. And he's got enlarged ears, because at least the Jacob one has enlarged ears, hearing this news, this bad report from his son. Here he is, hearing his story. And of course my comment would be, no wonder at this aspect in life, hate is still a part, if not ruling, in this man's family. A lot of it is out of his control. He has authored it, but the motions are in place, and he's seeing the natural outcome of the choices and the life that he has lived. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I love the way you presented this picture. I mean, I can see it.
Okay, good.
I thought about with the large ears. To me, it's Jacob saying, "Oh boy, here we go again with the boys," and yet there's Israel, who is the person that God has changed. So at the same time, Israel is trying to get beyond Jacob and say, "How am I going to really react to this?"
Yeah, you've taken that further. You've said that really, really well. He has choice now, and I think that's maybe what we need to dwell on, the fact that before there was only one, but now there's two. How they interplay, Dave, I don't know. It's the best I can come up with, but thanks for grasping that and taking it.
Great work picture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, So I'm going to leave with this, our challenge, and this is a little phrase on, I think love, guys, is so important. I can't overemphasize it. That book you turned me on to, The Road to Character,
Yeah.
where the author of Road to Character describes the relationships between George Eliot, who's a woman author, and George Lewis, her husband. There's this long description of love, and it is a powerful. It's really a powerful piece. That guy's a great writer. Yeah. So anyway, but this is something I've gone back to several times. Erich Fromm, philosopher, he wrote a book once called The Art of Loving. Have you read that?
Oh, yeah.
And in the book, and then you'll know this, this is something that's really challenged me the last several years for me. And I want to share it with you, and I want to give you the same challenge I'm looking at every day. And I don't have it committed to memory, but I always get the idea. On one hand, we've got two ways we respond to love, or we interact with this subject of love. And it bears right into our topic this morning. Over on that side is, I love because I am loved. You know, I'm responding to love is the idea. Therefore, is kind of a therefore. I love you because I need you. Okay, that is one aspect of love. I feel loved, so I can love, and I love you because I need you. That's one aspect.
They're linked, huh?
Well, I think they're contract. Yeah, these two are linked, and these two are linked, but these are in contract. And what I'm going to show is this is probably the typical or primary or first attempts at love, younger, immature. This is what I would call Christ-like love over here. This is what we want to, you know, the term would be agape in the New Testament. But what we want to grow into as men is over here. I think we move back and forth, but hopefully we can catch ourselves. Over here, I would call this a much more mature love of what love is truly to be about. I am loved because I love. That's huge. Can I continue to love when I am not loved? And as I love, as I release and let go and love, I feel loved. There is the truth. And then the corresponding phrase, I need you simply because I love you. I love you first, and therefore the you know what I'm talking about, don't you, Dick? I need you because I love you. That's all. I have no agenda for you, but I need you because I love you. Man, guys, this is worthy of meditation. And the challenge I leave with all of us is which is most true of you. And maybe I should add the phrase, and when. Because it's not one or the other. Hopefully we're growing and migrating over here. And I truly believe Jacob is moving over here in his story. Hopefully we are moving here as well. But that is everything I have for you today. Have a good week.
Thank you, Mike.
I would have joined those that way. I would think that I love